Hello and welcome to the official ZDNet show. We do the show every Friday, every week to go over and recap all the events that have happened. You may notice a bit of a change today. Our editor-in-chief, Jason Heiner, isn't here. He is traveling back from MetaConnect, and I think he got lost on the way. And so today, for this show, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Sabrina Ortiz, senior editor of AI at ZDNet. And we also have a special guest today. We have Nina Raymond, ZDNet's wearables extraordinaire. She is always wearing 5 smartwatches and 5 smart rings. And yeah, we're here today to talk about really two things, two big events that have happened this past week. For the first half, we're going to talk about the Apple reviews, everything from the iPhones to the Apple Watches to the AirPods. And for the second half, we're going to talk about MetaConnect, all the products that were announced at that event. Again, Jason is still nowhere to be found. Hopefully he'll be back next week. So let's get right into it.
I'm so excited. I feel like objectively, so sorry to cut you off, Carrie, as you could tell.
No,
I'm ready. I'm hype. I think this is like two of the most exciting product launches that we've had in a minute, and including, I know we're going to start with Apple, but especially all of the Meta stuff, which you got to be there for. And I can't wait to hear how it went and how it was being in the room. But yes, Carrie, kick it off with Apple.
Yeah, no, I see that you have your Ray-Bans on already, so I could tell that you're in the zone for that. But yes, we're going to start with Apple, and we're actually going to do this a little bit differently. I feel like normally people will start with the iPhones, but since we do have Nina here, I do actually want to start with the Apple Watches. That was actually the first sort of review that published for ZDNet and really every other publication, the Apple Watches. Or sorry, actually the AirPods came first, but Apple Watch even bigger. So we're going to start there. Nina, you went through the absolute gauntlet of testing all 3 watches over the weekend. You probably slept for an hour in total. And so I'd love to get your thoughts. Why don't we start off with the Apple Watch Series 11? That's probably the flagship and the one that most people want to talk about. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so the Series 11 was the Apple Watch most people were expecting, and we saw several upgrades from the Series 10. The bigger ones in my book are the hypertension detection feature, which was recently FDA cleared. So that means that it is like medically approved to detect high blood pressure in its users. That's a big one. The other one is sleep scores. I was looking forward to seeing sleep scores on the new lineup of Apple Watches because on the other wearables I've tested, that is a thing that has been around for a few years now, and Apple was kind of falling behind. So that was an amazing upgrade that I was looking forward to seeing and happy that it came.
But how was it?
Sleep scores, I will say, they are generous in the Apple Watch compared to Aura, compared to even Google and Samsung's ratings. They are a little bit higher and in my book inflated. I've been testing the Series 11 with the Aura ring. I've been sleeping with it, and Apple has given me 90s, and on nights where maybe I'd get a 70 for Aura, I've gotten like an 80, a high 80 for the Series 11.
Wait, maybe I need that then, because for everybody watching, Nina, well, all 3 of us work out of the New York office, and we would have a thing every morning where at one point when I was consistently wearing my Aura ring, and Nina and I would sit there and be like, who got the highest sleep score? And we would just compare, and mine were always atrocious. And I think I sleep great too. So maybe I need an Apple Watch in my life to lie to me, maybe.
Yeah, I think with the Series 11, the sleep scores are being judged on 3 factors. I believe it's sleep duration, consistency, and interruptions during the night, whereas a lot of these advanced sleep trackers like the Oura Ring, they're inputting, your activity levels during the day,
your recovery and stuff,
your recovery when your heart rate drops at night. So there's a lot more factors that could impact a lower score. Whereas this, I think Apple is designing its products for a general population. If you think about Americans and like how poorly they're sleeping, Apple doesn't want to upset its user base. And so it is kind of grading on a scale with these sleep scores.
So would you say that the sleep scores for the Apple Watch it's a little harder to necessarily compare with sleep scores from like competitors or other wearables, right? Like it's all not necessarily based on a comparison sort of setup, but instead it's just based on relativity. And so it's like if you're using an Apple Watch and you've got a 90, then great. But if you get an 85 the next day, that means you got to do a little bit better. And if you get a 100, that means that means you just keep doing what you're doing. So would you say that maybe like for most consumers, because they likely only have one wearable and they rely on one wearable to track that stuff, it probably is okay that like maybe the scores are a little bit different across devices because they just rely on, the one report at the end of every or at the start of every day.
Yes, I totally agree. I think like this will get more people tracking their sleep, and it provides kind of, when you see a number out of 100, that's like an objective piece of feedback, whereas maybe like something about your heart rate dropping later that impacts recovery, that's a little bit more of a gray area. That's not something that you can necessarily control. So simply having these scores will encourage users to wear their watches more and maybe pay attention to different aspects of their sleep they weren't paying attention to before.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the coolest thing about the Apple Watches this year is that a lot of the features are supported by all the current lineup of Apple Watches, but also some of the older ones as well, right? So you don't need the latest model to take advantage of some of these features, like the sleep scores, I believe. So long as you have a smartwatch that supports watchOS 26, you'll be able to get access to it. So I think that would be a good sort of transition into the Watch SE3. That's the cheaper of the three, or the more accessibly priced of the three watches. What are the sort of unique biggest features there from having reviewed it?
So I think the biggest feature or biggest draw of the SE3 is simply its affordability. It is a $250 smartwatch compared to the Series 11, which is starting price of $400, or the Ultra 3, which I believe is $799. So this watch is going to be a far more accessible watch. It doesn't have hypertension detection or the Ultra 3's satellite connectivity, emergency SOS via satellite. But if you think about what somebody who's never tried a smartwatch before, never tracked their health or sleep before, they don't need hypertension detection. If they're, a younger person who just wants to track their runs and their sleep, they may not need the blood oxygen monitor, which the Series 11 and Ultra 3 has. It's far more bare bones, but it is a far more accessible watch for beginners, for kids. If a parent wants to give their child like a device, but they don't want to give them an Apple Watch or an Apple phone, you can give them an SE3 because of that accessibility aspect. So I think also a lot of the features that we've seen on the Series 10, last year's model, are kind of migrating to the SE3. So Series 10 has 18 hours of battery life, sleep apnea detection, which is another FDA cleared feature. All of those things are coming to the SE3. Additionally, the Series 10 would be a great buy this year too, because as Carrie mentioned, watchOS 26 is not only available on that new lineup, it's available from the Series 9 and later, and the Ultra 2 and later. So if you are in the market for a smartwatch, you don't really care about these new features, or maybe you don't need a 24-hour battery life on that Series 11, an 18-hour Series 10 with all of these new features, hypertension detection, sleep scores, that's an attractive buy too.
Nina, I'm curious because I was super excited when we were talking about the predictions for the Apple event that there was rumors that, Gen 3 for the SE would come out, and then it did, because not only do I think it's like the best watch, and every week I'm talking about like Rex for like a mom, or my mom particularly, but I like for her, the one she's using right now is literally like a Series, I think 4. Like she's been using that thing to death. She loves it because of being able to text and being able to answer calls. That's really her purpose for it. I'm like, do not drop the money on the Series 11. Like, I don't think that's necessary for that use case. All she uses for is text and calls. But I think, like, for someone like me, the way I read them, and also from seeing your reviews, I feel like if I were to get a watch, that's the only one I would invest in, because it has all of the basic features that everybody would need, right? Like call, text, you can still track your runs, you could still do the
Yes.
things. So like, do you get the same read as me, and not a wearable connoisseur? I kind of wear them and I get over them like 2 weeks later. All the ones I've tried, like, is that a good read on it too? Because I feel like the audience is even more broad that we're making it, or that people typically make it seem.
Yeah, I agree totally. The one thing that is harder for one feature that I didn't really like on the SE3 is you can't type on your watch. You have to draw out letters because the screen is smaller than the other watch displays. So that was one feature where I was like, if I had to like continuously throughout the day like draw out the words that I want to send instead of like type, that's going to be annoying. But if you're only like every so often communicating through your watch, it's still like one of the best watches you can get.
Cool.
And now that you've tested all three, Nina, I was kind of like, I was thinking a lot about you testing the Watch Ultra 3, because you've always, I mean, you have small wrists, and so it's like obviously the perfect wearable for you to test. And so, I mean, we can keep this part a little shorter, but I would love to know what your sort of key takeaway is from having tested the Ultra 3, especially after testing the other two smartwatches that cost $300, $500 more or less.
Right. The Ultra 3 is a rugged watch. It is built for people who, you know, I think of the Series 11 or the SE3 as a watch that is built for somebody who is maybe running their first marathon or wanting to use their smartwatch at work to like see things on their watch instead of constantly checking their phone. The Ultra 3 is made for somebody who's probably already run 4 marathons, or they're doing a Tough Mudder or an Ironman. Like they are putting their smartwatch to the test in conditions that the average white collar worker who's just going into an office every day and coming back home and maybe running at their local Lifetime Fitness, like that, those conditions will never touch their Apple Watch Series 11. So the Ultra 3 is a big watch. It was definitely hefty to exercise with. Sleep tracking was, I will say, a pain because I do have really small wrists, and it felt like I could not position like my hand properly for me to fall asleep. So there was one day where it actually took me like, I think, an hour and a half to fall asleep with that watch on. But I think, don't look at the Ultra 3 as a smartwatch for sleep tracking. Look at it as a smartwatch that will probably get you out of danger if you're like going off grid, like hiking in the mountains, because it has that emergency satellite SOS communication. So you don't have to have your phone with you to communicate with the satellites and get help, or find your way out of a forest or something. I was talking with ZDNet's like hiker, rugged tech extraordinaire, Adrian Kingsley Hughes, and I was asking, how beneficial would this feature be to the lay person, and how beneficial is this feature to you? And he was telling me that one day he was like off grid in like a forest hiking, and all of these trees had fallen down, and so he's walking through the forest and his leg is stuck in like a 20-foot hole. And after that experience, he was like, I need to invest in some sort of like satellite feature if I'm off grid, if my phone's not working, because like I'm an older person. I don't know how I would have gotten myself out of this situation, if not for my technology. So that is probably, 2% of the population. People are going off grid and doing these things. But for for those people, satellite connectivity, a long battery life that's going to last them through their hikes and through their off-grid moments, like it's a very appealing buy. And it's also the reason why it is it's a niche audience, but it's a high price at $799.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is that the Apple Watch Ultra, I've always seen people wear it, even if they aren't hikers or into the sort of like rugged lifestyle. There are folks who probably just want a big display on an Apple Watch, or they want one that lasts them all day. I think
Yes.
we're at this point now where it's like the Apple Watches, no matter which one you get, should last you through a day at least. But obviously, the Ultra has always just had the biggest battery, and so I've seen folks, specifically this guy Jason Heiner, who wears the Ultra watch, and even if they're not doing any crazy tough mutters or anything like that, they still use it because it's good battery life. It's a nice display and everything. So also, I just want to add that maybe my Slack conversations are not as exciting after hearing yours with Adrian. So cool. Well, so with that, Apple Watch. Thank you again, Nina, for taking on the challenge of reviewing all three of them. Hopefully, you've gotten a chance to just reset and refresh. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the iPhones.
Wait, are we skipping over the AirPods? Because I know I see it coming out of Nina's ear right now too, and yours, Carrie.
If that's the case, then yes, we can definitely talk about the AirPods first. So I'll let you sort of dictate the conversation there, Sabrina. What would you like to learn more about?
Guys, I'm so jealous that y'all have them because they seem, and this is where I want to hear every review I've read, everything I've seen online, every thread post, every tweet, everybody is saying nothing but glowing reviews. Now, you've both had them. Are they as good? And wait, I specifically want to hear about this claim. The claim is that I've heard many creators and again, tech reviewers share that their noise cancellation is so good that they can forgo their over ears. And I exclusively wear over ears because I commute a lot on the train, New York City things, and my earbuds constantly either fall out, which is disgusting on the train, or I hear like the of all the trains and it's horrible. So I need to know both of those things. Fit and noise cancellation, good enough to replace over ears.
Yeah, I mean, I could share first. If that's okay, Nina. I mean, I actually just came back from MetaConnect, and so I was wearing the earbuds to and back from the event. I was on the plane. I did the plane test thing, and one thing I will say is that the active noise canceling is actually pretty good. Like it's probably as good as what you've heard, as in you hear less of a rumble when you're on the plane. You hear less of like the putting on your seatbelt, the sign when that pops up. There's a lot of like these like ambient noises that I think you would typically hear, even if you do have earbuds on, that you don't, or at least I didn't with the AirPods. That said, I will also say that I wanted to test the earbuds because I did a red-eye flight, and one of my biggest struggles is trying to actually fall asleep at night on a plane. And so my trick over the past year has been to wear over-ear headphones, just so that they could mask as much as possible. This time I just did the AirPods. I slept maybe like 30 minutes more than I usually would, so I guess it kind of worked, but it's also just this like one-time situation, right? And so I don't know exactly how effective it is. I still struggled, to be honest, but it was just a little less than usual.
The plane test is a good one though, because the rumble of the engine is always something that even with over ears, just sometimes you can't not hear. So
yeah, one thing Apple usually does with their briefings for the AirPods is that they'll like play noises to like show or try to mimic situations so you could see what how the AirPods perform. And the one that they usually always do is like the airplane test, where they'll put like HomePods around you in a room and they'll play a bunch of airplane noise soundtracks and stuff. And the one thing I told them this year was that it's really cool, but they really need to get like 4D chairs to mimic like the rumble as well, because I think that's the part that really gets you. And so, yeah, that's to say that once I did on the plane, it was good, but I still couldn't fall asleep. Maybe it's a me problem though. It's not an AirPods problem. So
yeah, it sounds like a you problem because I fall asleep the minute I sit on the tarmac in my chair, and I will wake up to the boing that we landed, or wake up when the food comes. But that's also just because I'm always hungry. Anyways, continue, Nina.
So I've tried both the Sony over-ear XM6s. That also got a noise canceling upgrade this year, and I have the AirPods Pro 3. I will say in the office, I've used the XM6s, which you've probably seen. I prefer the AirPods Pro 3 though. I think the noise cancellation is amazing. I like the gestures. Like I like shaking my head to decline a message. When both of you were writing the Meta Connect live events in the live events channel, all of those messages, I was actually running with these on a treadmill, and to be able to just shake my head as I'm moving and like was very helpful. And the sound is beautiful. It's so crisp and just it just hits all of the marks. I really want to, after I send these back, I want to get a pair of AirPods Pro 3 for myself. And as somebody who is always being sent earbuds, that is not something I say about earbuds. Like, so these are definitely worth it. I don't know if they're necessarily worth it if you have AirPods Pro 2, because I think that is just like a good device. And if your battery isn't dying and if you don't have any like hardware issues, then, you know, keep those. But if you don't have a pair of AirPods, these are the ones you should be buying.
Yeah, it sounds like after this conversation, I will be placing an order. I've lost 2 pairs of AirPods Pro, actually. So I was also pleased to see that Find Mine, those upgrades here too, because I'm the prime candidate, and I don't want to lose these if I purchase them. So they sound that good. But okay, thanks y'all. I needed that. If we would have been in the office, that would have been the first thing I would have asked you too. So I'm glad we were able to use some of the pod time, and hopefully our viewers got some of the inside scoop too.
Yeah, we'll also say that the AirPods, I mean, the timing for release is always good because I feel like it goes right into the holiday season.
Such a good gift.
Whether you buy it as a gift at retail price or if you try to like wait a bit and see if retailers discount them as well, I think either way, like you'll be able to get a good value from those earbuds at retail or discounted price. And so, yeah, like Nina and YouTube, Sabrina sort of said, it's like these AirPods are really good. Yes, like $250 is still a lot of money. They're not necessarily budget earbuds by any means, but I think for the folks who really do want like pro earbuds, as in ones that work well with ANC, they sound good, they fit well, they work well with your Apple products as well, then I think these are still probably the best ones that you could buy.
Oh, and so, Carrie, you're wearing the Pro 3 and I'm wearing the Pro 3. So as far as mic quality goes, how are we sounding, Sabrina?
You all sound great. Crisp, good, great.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm actually hacking this and I've got a mic.
Never mind. So just me, I guess.
Well, Nina, you sound great.
Okay, cool.
I will say, yes, Nina, you sound good though, Nina. So you're all good.
Cool.
Yeah. I will say that you guys sound well through my earbuds as well. So it's more of not really a mic test, but a speaker test.
Wait, before we move on, do they fall out of your ears less? Because again, that's also how I've lost AirPods, because they always fall out of my ear. I don't know if it's specifically to my ears. I know there's a new tip, so I think that would help. Yeah. And I think there was also built slightly differently, right? The form factor of it's actually different for it to be more better fitting, I guess, or ergonomic, whatever. So
I think the tips make a very big difference. Also, they're very like tactile, so they're stickier in your ear. When I was doing that run and getting all of your Meta Connect messages and shaking my head, they didn't fall out. So maybe that's a testament to like their ability to stay in when you're doing something high intensity.
Yeah, I would say I had more issues with the AirPods Pro 2 when it comes to fit. Like these ones have stayed on pretty well, and they passed Nina's Slack after work tests. And so, yeah, I mean, clearly the fit is much better. There's plenty of AirTip sizes available when you open the box as well. And so there's always just a lot of like customizability. I know Jason mentioned he's testing the AirPods as well. And he mentioned that he usually opts for this like third party, like composite AirTip that he puts onto the AirPods. And so I'm not so sure if he needs it at this point with the 3rd generation ones, but if he does, I mean, that's just like another extra thing that people can always get if they do have issues with it.
I also totally forgot to mention that these these AirPods have heart rate sensing now, so you don't actually
Yeah.
have to record your heart rate on
Mm.
an Apple Watch. You only need your AirPods to do so when you're exercising. So that's a feature. It's almost like a money-saving feature if you don't want to record, if you don't want to buy both an Apple Watch and earbuds. You can just have like heart rate sensors in your earbuds and be on your way.
So hype about that because as we've talked about multiple times in this call and multiple times in this pod, me and wearables don't really get along. So that's awesome. Sorry, Carrie, I hijacked the combo. We could go back to iPhones. I know people are waiting for that too. So
Yeah, no, let's start off with MetaConnect. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, we could do iPhones first. And so, yeah, I mean, actually today during this recording, it's the day of the iPhone 17 launch. This is when it actually goes open sales and people can walk into Apple stores and pick up their iPhones as well. Have you guys looked much at the sort of initial reaction so far? What the crowds are like? I've seen some videos online and photos, and I'll let you guys share your sort of perspectives first.
yeah, it looks great. People seem excited. People, I think this is the most excited I have seen people about an iPhone launch in a minute. And I think with reason, the new color. I know I always talk about the new colors, but people are excited. It's something new, and the new form
Mhm.
factor, and new colors are both two aspects of that we've been lacking, and real creativity there. So people feel motivated to go out to the store today, and it's been cool to see.
Yeah. While I was watching the keynote in the Steve Jobs Theater, when they debuted the iPhone Air, I was recording all the videos, and
Mm.
something I noticed was everybody, you could hear gasps and you could hear so many claps. So there's a lot of like the industry, the people, the media covering the iPhones, they're excited about this too. They're not cynical or anything. There was so much excitement and just like energy in the theater when they did announce the iPhone Air. So that's always good to see.
Yeah, it's a bit of a teaser to when I talk about the iPhone Air that I've been testing. But one of the things that I notice from this event, or one of my sort of thinking going into it, is that for the first time in a while, Apple has a lot of reasons, or they're giving a lot of reasons for people to go into their stores to actually look at the iPhones, whether it's the colors that are available, like the cosmic orange one for the Pro models, or just the iPhone Air, where people might want to go in and pick it up and sort of take videos and share on social media and stuff. Yeah, there's just like so many reasons for people to be there, and so like you sort of said, Sabrina, I think the turnout this time around, especially compared to like last year and maybe the year before, it feels like there's more people than ever, which is good. I think it's always good for consumers when they have those options. But yeah, that's my sort of observation so far.
And Carrie, you make a good point. It's not only just about being in person to like being able to say you tested it or take photos or all that. I actually think that this is one of those times where if you're considering an upgrade, you absolutely should go in person. Even from reviewing the iPhone
Yeah.
17, like there's some things where like if you just look at it, okay, great, it looks good, it looks the same as last year's, whatever. Colors, yeah, there's more, I like the pastels of this year better, but that's a personal preference thing. And how many people are upgrading just on the basis of color? Okay, sure. But I really do think that if you're coming from one of the older models and spend about maybe 5 minutes in store with like one of the older base models, that is, with the 17, you'll see why it's worth that upgrade for you. And I don't think that's often said with these type of with upgrading to a new phone where like holding it will make a difference. But this lineup is the lineup where you want to do that.
Yeah, I remember the one thing that we talked about leading up to this Apple event was that there we sort of expect more anticipation because people usually hold on to their iPhones for 3 to maybe 5 years. Some people hold it for longer. My dad's still on an iPhone 8 for some reason, and so my thinking was that because the iPhone 12 was so popular, and even like the iPhone 13 and 11, I think this year is the year where people are going to really seriously consider upgrading to the next iPhone, whether it's the standard one or the Pro or the Air. And so, like you said, I think it's definitely encouraged, and I sort of mentioned that in my review as well, that
So did
people
I, yeah.
should go into the store this year to take a look, just to get a feel of like what features matter to them, how they feel in the hand, what colors they prefer, what the price points are, because yeah, it's definitely more useful and insightful to be there than to just look at the online storefront and just sort of go off of the specs there.
Yeah, and I think one of those things that are really necessary to be in person to understand the magnitude of is the uh you know air. I think that's like I got to hold because I stole Carrie's for a morning and a morning and an evening, and you really it really does feel, and I made a post about this. Everybody's talking about the thinness, right? And that's great. And then obviously is very thin. But I think holding it, you don't realize how big the screen is and then how thin it is. And that combination is what I think really makes it an experience, when you're using it. It almost somebody commented on the post I made saying that it almost feels like you're just holding the screen. And that's the best way
Mm.
to put it. And you can't describe that to someone unless you go hands on with it. And with that, I'm not going to steal any more of the Air Thunder because obviously, Carrie, that's the product you're reviewing. So I would love to hear your thoughts. And you also went hands on with it at the launch event, right? Oh, did you? Oh, that's now you're gonna have to steal it from Carrie at in the office. But okay, don't worry, I stole it too. Carrie, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean the best part about testing like the newer form factors, whether it's like a foldable or like an ultra thin phone, is that I usually just pass it around the dinner table if I'm doing like a family dinner over the weekends, and I just look at people's reactions and I sort of answer their questions and see what their interests are. And with the ultra thin phone, it's always interesting because yes, it's like super thin and lightweight, but the number one comment is always like, how is it this portable and light with such a big screen? Like sort of like what you mentioned, Sabrina. So it's such a good takeaway because people go into it expecting it to feel more like a mini phone or a phone
Right.
that sort
I
of like
expected that.
compromises in that
Yeah.
way. But in reality, it's like any other large screen flagship phone right now, but instead it's one that doesn't make your hand ache as you use it for longer. So yeah, so what the review, I mean, I talked about a lot of things, but there are like a couple of key pointers that I'll sort of like talk about at least within this show. Um, the first one, I'll sort of start off at a lower point and then I'll go high if that's all right. The trade-offs of an iPhone Air, I think people sort of expected it going into the product launch, and even when we learned about the products, we knew what the trade-offs would be, right? Like camera, there's only one camera. There's no ultra wide lens, there's no telephoto lens. And so I don't know about you guys and how often you guys use the other ones, but as I was using the iPhone Air for the past 48 hours, maybe, I really did miss having those lenses. I missed being able to zoom in and get like a really clear video footage or shot of something. I missed being able to just stand in front of like a building and just go ultra wide and just be able to capture everything instead of having to walk back a couple of steps. And I mean, these are things that obviously the people who really want those features will get the Pro phone. It's not necessarily a knack or a knock at the iPhone Air, but more so just the fact that people who seriously want to consider that lightweight phone, they just need to know what the sort of caveats are before they get themselves into it. Because at the end of the day, it's a $1,000 phone. It's not cheap by any means, and so people who are making that investment should be aware of what they won't be getting. The other thing, and really the only other sort of drawback for me, has been battery life. That's again to be expected. I am not using that MagSafe battery pack thing that Apple pitches the phone with. I think it makes more sense for me to test it just as is and seeing how that does. And for now, obviously there's possibilities for the phone to do better next week and over the course of the month. But for now, I've had to just like charge the phone at around 3 p.m. every day. I don't know
Whoa.
how like good or bad that is for you guys, but I'm so used to just
Bad.
like yeah, I'm so used
Yeah.
to just not needing to charge my phone until maybe like 7, 8 p.m. At the latest or at the earliest. But this time around, I'm just like finding myself needing to top it up mid-afternoon.
So what are you doing with it? Because I feel like I've been seeing some conflicting reviews online. I've been seeing people say that battery is what you're describing, but I've also seen a ton of people say that they can make it through the whole day no matter how hard they're trying to kill it. So I'm curious like what your day of usage pre 3 p.m. is like.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like it's definitely going to vary per person. The way you use your phone will be different than the next person. For me personally, I'm using a bit of navigation. So, I mean, every morning I drive my car and I've got, the maps on for that one. I am probably browsing through things like Reddit and just like browsers in general, different websites and stuff, and looking at content there. And I mean, I wouldn't say my use cases are necessarily that of like a power user. I'm not playing games for an hour straight or recording 8K video and then, editing that. But yeah, I would say I use it pretty normally, I guess you could say. But again, the phone, I mean, it's just been set up. And so there might be a chance that there's like background tasks that are happening. There's apps that need to be updated. There's a lot of things that could possibly factor into the battery not being as good. But obviously, I don't want to make a full on judgment yet. I definitely didn't make it as sort of decisive in terms of how good or bad the battery is and within the review at this moment. But the plan is to update that after a week, after a month, and just seeing how that does.
No, that's super insightful because if you're doing those things and killing it by midday or by 3, I can only imagine someone like me who I'm like chronically like glued to my phone. And if I'm not kidding you, I'll be writing an article and then I'll pause and I like pick up my phone and I like go through, okay, let me look at TikTok. I shouldn't be doing this right now. Let me cancel it out. Okay, then let me look at Gmail. I will look at my work emails and my Slacks on my phone and then go back. So I feel like I would kill that battery so quick. So that's helpful to know. But like you said, we can't make a judgment just yet, but good to know as we evaluate buying decisions out here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the only other thing that I will say, and we could sort of move on to the possibly more exciting iPhone 17 after this, is that one thing I noticed from testing this phone that I didn't know going into it was that because the USB-C port is positioned a little differently than traditional iPhones, as in it's not actually like fully centered on the bottom of the phone, it's actually a little bit off center, if anything. I realized that when I put the phone in a lot of cases that I'm testing, my USB-C port actually, or my USB-C cable doesn't fit perfectly into the phone with the case on. And so, as in, what I'm trying to say is that there is probably the best chance for you to have both a working USB-C cable as well as a case if you get it from Apple directly. But if you get like a third-party case, as reliable or as official as that brand may be, there's always a chance that maybe your ports might not work as well with your cables. That again might just be a me thing or something that a techie person would have, but I'm expecting everyone to sort of have like different cables and cases, and there's a chance that they might not match or fit perfectly.
That's interesting. That makes sense though, because a lot of times these companies will design the cases and stuff based on like leaks or based on like information gathered here and there before the phone comes out. So there's always that risk of it not lining up. And I feel like you wouldn't think to move the port to the side on the case unless you had the phone in front of you. So good to know. Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that said, let's talk about the
17?
iPhone 17. That's right.
Yes, I've been using it. I have it in lavender, which if I were, this is a review unit, but if I would have purchased a color, I think I would have done lavender. Even though I know a lot of people like that green color. Nina, you went hands-on with the green one at the actual event. And it is pretty. For me, it's a bit dull. But anyways, not the point of the 17 review. Nina, I would love to hear your thoughts of going hands-on with it too. If you want, I'll jump in with my 24 hours or also 48 hours experience with it after too.
Sure. So I think one of the major features that stood out to me was that camera, the difference between like the vertical shot or the horizontal shot when you're taking a selfie. I thought that was like a really cool feature.
We love center stage out here.
Yes, and one thing I will say as somebody who we've already acknowledged on this, I have small wrists, I also have small hands. So, whenever I had to turn my phone horizontally to take a group photo, I was always like my thumb would sometimes have trouble reaching the button to capture the photo. So I think that is honestly one of the major reasons like I am for the 17. I just love that you don't have to change the position of your phone to capture a photo anymore. That's like a smart, unique touch Apple is putting into its software that I love to see.
Yeah, center stage is one of those features. I kind of talked about this in the review. The first time you use it kind of feels like magic, right? Like, I've been around other tech people, whether it be briefings or whatnot, using the feature or figuring it out for the first time. And even them, even their reactions every time is like, whoa, it works, because it really is that cool. And I think the AI built into it too, not only being able to manually flip it from vertical to horizontal, but also if it detects people around you, for it automatically to widen the shot. I think it's just so helpful, because like what you're describing, Nina, has happened to me a million times. It's like, okay, you get like 3 or more people and they're all willing to take the selfie, but then it's like one person's like sacrificed to be the one who has to hold the phone, and then you're just kind of like flipping and stretching and moving your arm and doing all these things where like just for it to automatically do it for you is going to be so helpful. I imagine in those situations, I haven't been one of those just yet, other than like testing situations where it's been fabricated, but I'm sure it'll be helpful there.
Yeah, I will say that the good thing, if you really do like that feature, Nina, is that I feel like the feature has been so well received that you don't necessarily need to upgrade to the iPhone 17 to get it. But I feel like you could expect even future iPhones to have that feature with the selfie camera. Like that's just going to be the standard moving forward, right?
Yeah, I think Jason said he expects it to be on like all phones from here on out,
Mm.
and I can totally see that. It's one of those things where I'm
Yeah.
like, how did this not happen before? Like, how did we not get here before? Because it's just such a helpful feature, and it's such like a really simple, I feel too, on like the manufacturers, and a simple way to implement it too. But anyways, for the rest of the 17, y'all, I've only ever owned Pro phones, particularly because I'm obsessed with taking photos. Y'all can check out that review I did in the iPhone 16 Pro with Jason, because he's also obsessed with taking photos. And I just always needed the better camera system. But because of that, I never realized that I was very spoiled by the 120, well, the ProMotion, like refresh rate. And it wasn't until, and I wrote this in review too, I had to review the iPhone 16e earlier this year, and that has the 60. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so much different. Like, it's actually so much more laggy and stuttery. And again, you might not notice it if you've never experienced the
Mm.
faster version or like the smoother version of that. But again, having the 17, be able to move from the 16 Pro to the 17 to test it, and noticing absolutely no difference was amazing. And that's also awesome, because that was also a feature only limited again to the Pro phones, and now it's across the lineup. Huge win for base model users. Other than that, there's so many little upgrades that make, in my opinion, the gap between the Pro and the base model more indistinguishable than ever. Small increase to the actual screen size, making it the same as the Pro. Yeah, overall, enjoying the experience. I in the best way possible, haven't missed my Pro, which I typically have, is one of those things where it's like I'm comparing it to that, because that's like the best of the iPhone lineup. And yeah, I think that if you are considering an upgrade, more than ever, it might be worth sitting there and considering the base model.
This makes me.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you, since both of you are phone experts, and so, like a common theme I'm seeing with this lineup, like the smartwatches, is a lot of like the best features coming to the new ones are like available in a like a wider there's like a wider array that's available now. As you said, like something that used to only be available for pro models is now available for the baselines. So why do you think Apple is moving in this direction where it's not only providing new features and luxury features to the new lineup, but also making it accessible, widely accessible?
I have a take on this, but I would love to hear yours first, Carrie, because I feel like mine would be skewed to the AI of it all.
Okay, well, I'm not AI. I'm not about to talk about
Yeah.
AI, so it's good. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I mean, we don't speak for the companies, but I think the sort of thinking from my side is that, for one, I think it plays well to the story of sustainability. It's something that the companies can always reference years down the road and mention that, yeah, like, we support, updating our older devices, whether it's a smartwatch or an iPhone or a tablet, what these features so that more people can access them. But at the same time, I think it's just one of those things that's kind of small in a sense because it's really just about rolling out the software update to these devices. But it makes a big difference in terms of building loyalty with customers. It shows to them, the people who invested in some of these older models, that the brand still cares about those products. And in that sense, when people are ready to upgrade and when they feel like they're actually at that point, whether it's like their iPhone cracked or their Apple Watch battery is dead, they'll consider picking up another one because they know that even if they buy that newer model, they can use it for a couple of years down the road and know that they'll get those latest features, even though they won't have the newest model. And so it's one of those things that, obviously, the bigger the company you are, the easier it is to do that because you have the developers to roll these features out and build them around other and older platforms. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that goes a long way, especially for brands like Apple and Samsung and Google. And I mean, like you said, like we're seeing a trend where more brands are doing this because they probably realize too that it's something that's worked for Apple for so long. So
I
yeah.
love that you went first because I took Nina's question in a different direction, but I think both of them apply to the question. And mine was more, I took your question as to like, why is Apple making features that were typically limited for pro models or more of like the higher end models and making them available for more of the base models? Like, again, we talked about features that were only available on like the Series 11 or like, that kind of lineup now available on the SE, or here we're talking about pro level features available on the base model. And my take there, again, is just speculation to be taken with a grain of salt, might have none of the actual reasoning behind it, what Apple actually did. But I think that with this product launch, Apple went back to basics really, and they've been trying to compete in the AI space with Apple Intelligence and all that. And I feel like that took, especially last year, that's what was at the forefront. I think this year they really focused on like, hey, where we can compete is the hardware. And they went and they pulled out, all the things, all the shots with this lineup, making all of their products, I think, more competitive. And the best way to do that is by delivering those pro features into the base models. And also, people who are interested, you're not going to lose the pro model audience, in my opinion, because again, those people are typically power users who need that extra power from the chipset. Now there's the vapor chamber. Like, they need those pro top of the line actual components, and especially with the camera system too. Again, like, you're not going to lose like those pro power users, but what you are going to do is possibly, hopefully, I think the mindset is get more people to either upgrade or get more people to convert to again, the base models, which are the models that appeal to the most people and also most affordable to most. Same thing with like the watch SC3. So that's my take, but I love that we both took it in different directions, Carrie.
Yeah, so I mean, with all that said, I think that's the perfect way to cap off our sort of Apple September reviews barrage for now.
Yeah,
Because
we haven't
Jason,
forgotten about the pro models. Jason's gonna bring
yeah,
all the
yeah,
thoughts on that.
for what it's worth, we have been mentioning the pro models throughout this whole
Yeah.
podcast, but we definitely want to reserve the thoughts for Jason, who is testing the Pro Max phone right now. And so he'll probably talk a little bit more about that next week. But for now, I do want to sort of almost try to wrap this up, and we can't go without talking about MetaConnect.
Can't. We can't.
Happened this week, happened just 2 days ago, and I would say there was quite a lot that came out of it, a lot of which many people are probably really interested in, because I think the biggest product announcement at this event was the Meta Ray Bans. That's like the product that probably has been one of the most successful AI wearables in the past couple of years. I think many others have tried, but they've failed or just haven't been able to get as much adaptation from the general public. But Meta Ray Bans, these are the ones that a lot of people care about, and clearly enough to warrant Meta releasing 3 versions at this event. We'll try to keep this one a little bit more brief. There's definitely one that we should talk the most about, and 2 that are still very notable, but we can sort of walk through the basics for those ones. Let's get those 2 out of the way first. So let's start off with the Ray-Ban Meta 3rd generation glasses. So Sabrina, you're wearing they're the 2nd generation ones, but Sabrina, you're wearing the 1st generation ones. Tell me what's like, and I sorry to put you on the spot, but tell me what are some features that you feel are missing from those 1st generation ones?
No, I know exactly what you're doing, how you're setting this up. I love these. My biggest complaint's always been battery life. And also my biggest thing that I loved about testing the Oakleys, not the new ones that just released, the ones before then, the House and Pair, was that it doubled battery life essentially. So I'm sure that's what you were teeing it up for. Really glad that that's what's coming to the new, the 2nd generation Metas. That was absolutely necessary. And that was like my biggest concern. I think the other upgrades, like the 3K video, the Housens also have that. And I don't know if that's a make it or break it for me. I don't think I could tell the difference really. I mean, both times I think the video is great with both pairs. So it's never really been an issue. So it wasn't like the upgrade, it wasn't like it was fixing an issue. They were always solid. But I'm happy to see that the extended battery life is coming, because that was my biggest issue.
Yeah, it's one of those like, the 3K resolution, it's considered an upgrade because it's coming from 1080p to 3K. But one thing that I didn't think too much about, but you sort of like raised the thought, is that a lot of the video that people record with these glasses, they post on social media. And so I think whether it's 1080p or 3K, the difference is not as noticeable, because you're going to be scrolling through it on Instagram or on TikTok, and all you care about is more like the content that you're watching and less so the quality of it. And so, yeah, like you mentioned, the 2 biggest things, and the things that I did want you to talk about, Sabrina, were battery life, which is twice the battery now with the 2nd generation Meta Ray Bans, and 3K video recording. That's the other one. Besides that, the actual hardware, the build, the look and appearance, it's basically the same as the 1st generation ones. And I don't think that's a problem, because even then, I don't think people had many complaints about how they looked.
I want to flag the new update with the AI. It's like an AI powered, names flee in my mind. Maybe you remember it, Carrie, but it's like the audio isolation and what's supposed to help with like if real life conversation. I think that's really, really interesting. I'm really excited to test those out whenever I get my hands on the 2nd generation pair, because it's one of those things where it's going to actually help your everyday conversations. If you're like at a crowded bar, or if you're anywhere, it could just like isolate somebody's voice. I think it's also interesting because we're seeing other companies come out with the glasses that do have like those hearing aid, over the counter hearing aid options. So I thought, and coolest part is that update's also coming to older models, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty cool. So actually, I'll get to test it on these. Forget that I said that. I still want to get my hands on the latest models though.
Yeah, I mean, if not all the software features that they announced, conversation focus is the one that you're talking about, Sabrina.
Yes.
They will be rolling out to older models, which again sort of ties into what Nina was talking about earlier as well, about just like extending the longevity of these devices via software. It's so easy for these big companies to do it, and so it's like more of a why not thing for Meta. So yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, Sabrina. I'm gonna go into the next model, which is the Oakley Vanguard. These ones, I'm sure you guys are very interested in this one.
I actually cool. They look beautiful.
They do. Both Jason and I went into the briefings for this one, or the demos, sort of expecting this to be like the least interesting one, but they actually did turn out to be pretty cool and fascinating.
Yeah, the visor
Um,
look is a really big upgrade, I think, from the Oakley Houston ones because they actually look like runners or like actual athlete
yeah.
glasses, where these just look like sunglasses that I guess athletes would wear.
Yeah, and I mean the coolest thing for this one, yes, like it's got the 3K video recording. It's got the same battery life that will last you for a while. They are IP rated 60 IP67 rated, which means that they are resistant to water and sweat and rain and all of that. But the coolest feature, and I would love to know Nina's thoughts on this, is that they actually integrate with Garmin smartwatches. And so
And
essentially what you could
Strava.
do, and Strava as well, exactly. And what you could essentially do is that when you have these glasses on, you could ask Meta to pull up your metrics as you're working out. And so you could ask Meta for how many miles have you been biking for, or what is your heart rate or your BPM as you're working out. There are so many of these things that are synced together with the glasses that you just don't get with the other Ray-Bans and the other smart glasses. But of course, they only work with Garmin watches. And so, yeah, Nina, is this something that interests you? I mean, you work out probably the most of the three of us, or at least for me, I speak for myself. And
You
so,
were
yeah,
right.
I'd love to learn, get your thoughts on this.
I can imagine them being very useful for runners, and even just the look of them, it's so cool. Like I can automatically see people I run past on like the in Prospect Park wearing them. And something that interests me is the idea of being able to see the course of your like the running course just on the sunglasses. I imagine that's a feature that's going to be on these glasses. And yeah, as far as like the Garmin compatibility, that's a curious collaboration because yeah, it's like a Garmin is obviously one of the more notable running exercise smartwatches if we're not talking about the big three like Apple, Google, Samsung. So it makes sense to have that collaboration. But the idea that somebody would not only spend their money on these expensive smart glasses, but also a smart watch to have that feature, I don't know if that would be super appealing. It would almost be more appealing if Meta just debuted its own smartwatch as well. But that's my take.
Yeah, that's fair to think about. And I mean, I think who Meta is targeting, especially with this Garmin integration, are existing Garmin users, as in folks who have already spent $500 to $1,000 on a Garmin smartwatch and they want to make the most of that. Then those people would consider the Oakley Vanguard glasses. But I will also mention that these glasses, they do support and can be in sync with like Apple, the health app for iPhones, and Google's health apps. But the difference is that you can't get real time information as you're working out, but instead you could get like a recap when you're done with everything. I'm sure Meta, their plan and their goal is to eventually broaden out and get support for all the wearables so that, the millions of Apple users out there can actually use those glasses as well. But for now, it's definitely just for Garmin. And like you said, it's a little bit limited, and I'm not too sure who or how many people will sort of bite and then take both of those products at once. But yeah, I mean, we'll see within the year and, the future if Meta does release successors to this to sort of prove a point. But yeah, big question mark. Yeah, I appreciate the insight.
I'm kind of horrified that we've left 2 minutes. We're gonna have to go over a couple because
That's fine.
we're about to get into the meat of the Meta Connect event. Carrie, how were the actual Meta Ray-Bans display up here? Because they look physically, at least from the photos I've seen, they look as chunky, or like also known as not chunky, as these, but they have a whole screen in them, which is incredible. And I need to hear how it was going hands-on with them.
Yeah, I'm sure Jason would be super excited to talk about this. He actually got the demo for 2 days. I only got it for one, and so he knows a lot more about it at this point. And the funny thing about when I demoed this is that they didn't have my prescriptions. And so as I'm wearing them, it's basically this like blurry vision of like what's in front of me. However, I will say that is that the waveguide display, which is the projections that you mentioned before, they are so like close to my eye that I could sort of like make out like, oh, here's the camera part of the UI. Here's the Ask Meta button and stuff. And so I can give you a bit of a general overview of it. For one, yes, they do fit and feel very much like the existing Meta Ray bands. They're a little bit chunkier because they have more parts in them, and
Yeah.
they gotta prevent themselves from overheating and stuff like that. But also, there's this second half of this product, which is the neural wristband. Essentially, what it is that you put it on your dominant hand or your dominant wrists, and you could use that to navigate the user interface of the glasses. The actual gestures themselves, I would say, are fairly intuitive. They're fairly straightforward. So like the way it works is that you would pinch with your thumb and your index finger to select. You would pinch your middle finger and your thumb to return to the home screen or go back. And then you would basically pretend your hand is like a joystick to navigate it. So you could pretend that like you're using like a joystick right now, and you can move it left, right, up and down, and that basically navigates around the user interface, the menus, and all the settings and stuff. The actual like core functionality of these glasses, like yes, you can still take photos and videos. You can still ask Meta various questions and get insights about what you're looking at. But at the same time, I think the whole point of it is that you're gaining so many more insights in real time as you're sort of in real world, that it almost gives you like a cheat code. It almost gives you like an advantage to real life. You could basically pull up like translations of things that you're looking at without having to take your phone out. You could take pictures and get a viewfinder of what that picture looks like without looking at your phone for a preview. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a very cool product. Still very much a first generation product. There were like some bugs that happened where maybe I was pinching my index finger and it registered as a middle finger pinch instead, or there were moments when I was trying to navigate and it just wouldn't go to where I wanted it to go. And so, yeah, it's a first generation product, but Meta clearly is confident enough to release it very soon. These glasses, I believe they launch on September 30th, which is the end of this month. They cost $799, which I think was probably less than what people expected if you weren't following the rumors and the leaks
But
and
that's
everything.
just the glasses, right? Not with the band.
It's both.
Oh
So
wow, that's actually
it's
not
the
that bad. Okay.
yeah. So that's the reaction that I've seen the most. It's like, oh, so you pay $800 and you get the band and the glasses, and so especially with how like advanced they are and how innovative the features are, I think people were expecting something probably more than $1,000, but yeah, they announced it. It's $800.
Hell yeah.
We posted a video of the reaction from the crowds and everything. Everybody was pretty astonished by it. But yeah, that's the overview. Let me know if you guys have any questions.
I'm curious about the neural band because I've used other ones at CES last year. I got to demo like the Mudra, I think it's, I don't know how you say their name, band, and I was so skeptical at first. I'm like, oh, there's no way this is gonna work. And I was actually so pleasantly surprised at how easy it is to be able to, again, motion with your fingers and somehow it knows really well. And especially when it comes to things like, drawing, or even we saw Zuckerberg and during the actual demo, he was able to like make messages happen by like pretending he was like writing and the text would come up in the message. Were you able to demo that? How was that? Like, was it actually as intuitive as it sounds?
Yeah, that was the one feature that I think was probably the most interesting, but we didn't get to demo. I believe not many media members who got to like get the briefing were able to try that out, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's like it makes so much more sense because you'd rather do that than just like sound out, what letters you want to write or what words you want to write or try to type on a fake keyboard or something. But yeah, that's something that we'll definitely test when we actually get the glasses.
All right. Well, that's all it for my questions for a minute. I'm super excited though. They sound a lot like the Google ones that we got to demo over at I/O. basically in functionality, they work the same exact way, with the exception that the Google ones at the time, who knows, by the time they launch, didn't come with a neural band. So I'm super excited because I loved demoing the Google ones. It was again, as a eyeglass wearer, which is also Zuckerberg's point. He made it a couple times during the keynote. He's made it during podcasts before, that it's the best form factor for bringing AI, bridging AI into your actual real life. And also, like, a ton of people wear glasses already because we need to, because we can't, as Carrie, and Nina, you wear glasses too, all three of us, because we just simply need them for seeing. So why not incorporate all of these extra advantages in like, for the first time in my life, not having 20/20 vision is going to be an advantage, because I'm already wearing these things and I could use it to, like, I guess, like a power up. So I'm super excited for those. I can't wait till we get our hands on a pair. But other than that, I guess that wraps it up for Meta Connect. Really, there was other AI related announcements, but we're out of time, and they were less flashy, more so in like the VR space too, which, I feel like AI smart glasses have overtaken the hype of the metaverse and all of that kind of stuff anyways.
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty safe thought to, Meta is definitely leaning more on the smart glasses and wearables at this point. But yeah, like Sabrina said, there's so much more to dig into with those glasses and really all the other Meta products that they announced during Connect. And so we'll definitely be talking more about that. I'm sure Jason's going to go over time and talk about that with the next sort of podcast or next couple of shows as well. And so, yeah, thank you all for tuning in for this week's ZDNet show. There's a couple more events happening this month. We're not going to talk too much about them yet, but when they happen, and we'll definitely have a show to go over all of the stuff that's happening later this month and into the rest of the fall as well.
Yeah, I'll be heading out to Snapdragon Summit, which is where Qualcomm releases their latest chipsets on Monday. So we'll come back to you hopefully by next Friday for all the latest on that. And like Carrie said, there's a bunch of other events sprinkled in through the rest of Techtember, and then Techtober is about to kick off, and Techtober is also as crazy as Techtember typically. We will have a jam-packed podcast for you for the rest of the near future. But Nina, thanks for joining us today. This was super fun. Thanks for also sacrificing your sleep for us to bring us the best Apple Watch reviews. So,
thank you for having me, both of you.
Yeah, cool. Amazing. Carrie, you want to sign us off?
Yep, we'll wrap it there, and we'll see you guys next week.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.